The 20th century replaced the duel with the machine. Combat became an assembly line of steel, chemical explosives, and mass-produced armor designed to eradicate life with industrial efficiency. Military planners treated war as a mathematical certainty. If you deployed more men, more tanks, and more artillery than the enemy, your victory was a matter of simple arithmetic. Yet the archives are full of individuals who broke that math. A lone scout capturing a city, an unarmed piper walking through D-Day, and a marksman who forced an entire army to hunt a ghost. These moments suggest that mechanized armies have an exploitable limit, one that has nothing to do with the thickness of their armor. Every piece of hardware on the battlefield relies on a human mind to function. If you can disrupt the pilot's perception or shatter their will, the most advanced weapons in the world become useless. Modern training teaches soldiers to react to logic. They are drilled to suppress machine gun fire, take cover from artillery, and flank predictable positions. They are prepared for a professional enemy. On D-Day, Sword Beach was a storm of these logical threats. German bunkers provided a constant, lethal crossfire, pinning thousands of Allied troops into the sand. Bill Millen ignored the logic of survival. He carried no rifle and took no cover. He walked back and forth along the shore playing Highland bagpipes, standing upright while the soldiers around him pressed themselves into the earth. Captured German snipers later explained why they never pulled the trigger. They had a clear shot, but they assumed Millen was insane. They didn't see a target, they saw a man who had clearly lost his mind, making him feel, in their words, unsporting to kill. Jack Churchill employed a similar disruption. He entered the age of tanks and paratroopers, carrying a Scottish claymore and a medieval longbow, claiming that any officer without his sword was improperly dressed. A German sentry knows how to process a grenade or a rifle, but seeing an officer charge while playing bagpipes before drawing a broadsword creates a moment of pure disbelief. It forces the brain to stall while it tries to categorize a 15th century threat. That stall is the weapon. When a soldier hesitates because they cannot believe what they are seeing, their superior firepower is neutralized. In a firefight, a second of confusion is as effective as a direct hit. Other soldiers chose to weaponize the feeling of being hunted, proving to the enemy that no fortification or number of guards could keep them safe. During the Winter War, Simo Häyhä integrated himself into the Finnish landscape. He used no telescopic scope to avoid lens glints and wore white camouflage that made him indistinguishable from the snowdrifts. He kept snow in his mouth to hide the steam of his breath and packed powder in front of his barrel to keep muzzle blasts from kicking up dust. He became a ghost in the trees. The Soviets eventually stopped hunting for a man and started shelling the forest itself. They wasted thousands of rounds of artillery on empty trees out of pure paranoia, desperate to hit a ghost that had already crippled their morale. Tommy Prince used this same invisibility in Italy, but he chose to leave his targets alive. He slipped into occupied German barracks at night while the soldiers slept inside. He didn't fire a shot. Instead, he unlaced the boots from the sleeping men and left them in a neat, towering pile in the center. When the soldiers woke up, they realized an enemy had stood over them while they slept. That message destroys a unit faster than casualties. It creates a chronic paranoia that prevents sleep and erodes discipline. They weren't fighting an army. They were fighting the realization that they were never safe. If you can control what the enemy perceives, you can force them to surrender to an army that doesn't exist. In 1945, Leo Major entered Zwolle alone. He sprinted through the streets, firing and throwing grenades down alleys to simulate a multi-pronged attack. Hearing gunfire from every corner, German commanders' imaginations constructed a massive encirclement that wasn't there. By dawn, the garrison abandoned the city. Albert Roche used this same authority in the mud of the First World War. He would approach isolated German trenches alone and issue commands with the absolute confidence of a man backed by a battalion, convincing hundreds of weary men to lay down their arms. These men won their battles before the first shot was fired. They understood that if you act with the certainty of an army, the enemy will surrender to the phantom you've created. Modern nations spend billions to build faster jets, thicker plating, and autonomous drones. The goal is to remove human vulnerability from the equation. But these stories prove that hardware has a ceiling. A tank is a fortress until the crew inside is too terrified to drive it. A bunker is impregnable until the commander believes they are already surrounded. As long as human beings operate the machines, warfare remains a contest of psychology. The ultimate weapon targets the enemy's resolve, whether it's the silence of an invisible sniper or the song of a lone bagpiper. The battle ends the moment the man behind the machine decides he can't win.